Alright YouTube, so before we get into the video, this is clearly not Fallout gameplay, this is Metro 2033 Redux. Fallout 4 updates at least once a month for the mods, and I never know which day it's going to be, and I have a bad habit of not recording gameplay ahead of time for videos, so we're stuck with this, which is still a great game, and it's a post-apocalyptic game. The Metro series is something that I'm very late to getting into, but I've been having a blast so far. I also have the brightness up so that it's more enjoyable gameplay, and plus I have terrible vision. Anyways, on to the video. It recently came out that Hines did an interview with IGN at Gamescom this year, and I thought we'd look over the interview and take away anything that we can. So for starters, they asked Hines about the Save Player 1 campaign, and if he's sick of people, I guess, bringing it up or whatever, and he responds with, I mean a little, but single player is part of who we are. We're also the folks that make Elder Scrolls Online, we make Quake Champions, we make Elder Scrolls Legends, but single player is part of who we are. I understand the position he's coming from. If you ever go to Hines' Twitter, it's pretty annoying. Like, people ask him the same questions pretty much every day. It's like he's answering the exact same questions. People don't go through his Twitter to see if he's already answered this question. It's like, hey, can we play single player? Can you play solo? Can you play offline? Like, these questions are asked to Hines almost daily, and it's got to be annoying. But on the flip side of all of that, they knew this game was coming out. They knew after they did the Save Player 1 campaign, that whole thing, they knew that Fallout 76 was coming out just a little bit down the road. Like, why? That's their own fault. They shot themselves in the foot with this. You can't blame people for giving them crap over making a multiplayer game right after this whole Save Player 1 campaign. Like, that's completely their own fault. Because up until Fallout 76, we didn't have any multiplayer games from Bethesda, really. Like, you had ESO, but that's not really Bethesda. It's not BGS. That's ZeniMax Online. And you had, like, Fallout Shelter. And then you had stuff like Doom, which is single player, but you can do, like, multiplayer. You can play Team Deathmatch and stuff like that. But, like, 99% of their games are single player, and then, you know, the multiplayer games are everywhere. They come out with Save Player 1, and then I'll be damned if not a year later, they're coming out with a strictly online-only, multiplayer-only Fallout game, which the Fallout series up to that point, not including Shelter, have been single-player games. It's like, you can't be upset with people giving you crap about this. Like, y'all chose to do this. Bethesda also makes Fallout 76 the first Fallout to be a shared world experience. Somewhat unsurprisingly, it's one that Hines plays solo. I'm trying to think. I grouped once, he says. Once. Otherwise, I like going out by myself. This is something we've been hearing for a long time now, at least since obviously the game was revealed, that Hines plays Fallout 76 solo. He likes to play by himself. I don't doubt that this is true necessarily. I'm sure he does enjoy playing the game by himself. Maybe he plays solo most of the time, if not all the time. But I do think it's a level of them trying to do damage control, because you have so many people up in arms or upset over the fact that it's a multiplayer Fallout and other things surrounding this game people are upset about. And I think that they're trying to push this narrative that it feels like a regular Fallout game. It feels like any other Fallout game you've ever played. And I don't think that's going to be the case. And look, you guys know that I'm optimistic about the game. I've pretty much been hyping up the game for the most part. I've shit-talked it a little bit. But for the most part, I'm positive when it comes to Fallout 76. But I highly doubt that it's going to feel like any other Fallout game that we've played. It's the biggest Fallout so far, but it's also going to be the most empty. We don't have any NPCs. We're going to get quests by other means, terminals, robots, holotapes, things like that, notes, whatever, found world quests. But the lack of NPCs in the game to interact with, get quests from, have walking around the map, walking around towns and cities and stuff like that, it's going to feel very, very different. Also, you have other players. And I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing. I'm kind of waiting, holding my opinion on this until we actually play the game during the beta and obviously during launch. But just on paper, I don't think this is going to feel like a regular Fallout game. The one time Hines did group up with Todd Howard, of course, 76 still catered to his lone wolf tendencies. He tells me of a moment when he diverged from his group to pursue something by himself, and noticed on his map that everyone else had quietly done the same. It's not like grouping up means all four of us have to walk around the map together and do stuff. The game is like, look, just do whatever you want. If he decides to go off here and start base building, he's doing quests, the game doesn't care. It's kind of loose and fluid and whatever you want to be, as opposed to no, you're all together so you can't be more than 100 feet from each other at any given point. I don't know, that's what it feels like. It feels like a Fallout game that you're playing with your friends. I don't believe this was anything that people were worried about. I don't even know of any multiplayer games off the top of my head that when you group with another player or other players, you're forced to stay within their vicinity or something like that. Like, I can't think of any other multiplayer games like that. Maybe they exist, maybe you guys know of some, but what I've played for multiplayer open world games, you can group up with each other and still travel in opposite directions if you want to. But still, I suppose it is decent information and something that we didn't actually have a yes or no on. Not that anybody was even asking that question. But for those that might have been worried about this, there you go. So from here, the interview kind of goes into them talking about trends, Fortnite, Battle Royale, and how Bethesda, I guess, doesn't necessarily hop on bandwagons they don't necessarily follow the trend, which isn't entirely true. Like, even back in 2015, they made Fallout Shelter, which back then I think mobile games were a little more popular than they are now. Maybe mobile games are still popular, I have no idea. Back in 2015, they were definitely pretty popular. They hopped on that, a multiplayer game, free to play, with a lot of microtransactions. Like, they did hop on a trend. And then even with ESO, which I believe is earlier, I believe that came out in 2014, came out before Fallout Shelter. That's a big multiplayer game full of microtransactions. And then with Fallout 76, obviously, again, another multiplayer game. It's going to have cosmetic only, apparently, microtransactions. But the trend that I'm glad they are following is that the updates for the game, the DLC, the add-ons, are supposed to be free. We'll see if they stick to that. I assume they will, because they'd probably get a lot of heat if they didn't stick to that. But a lot of games are doing that these days, like Overwatch is one of them, for example. Fortnite, you could technically get everything for free if you play that game enough. So, like, them following the trend of giving us add-ons and DLC for free, I am completely fine with. This is not to say Bethesda ignores the ever-evolving landscape, and Hines says that its approach to single-player in particular has moved away from the single-value proposition of replayability. We have a joke in the office: I've banned the word replayable because that's not a feature. Every game is replayable. Tetris is replayable. Every game can be replayed from the beginning. That's not unique. That's not a feature. If replayability is not a feature to Pete Hines, then that explains Fallout 4, because that game was not replayable. Like, your choices didn't really matter in that game compared to Fallout New Vegas for sure. Like, that game promoted multiple playthroughs. Things were different. Things weren't that different with Fallout 4, regardless of which faction you chose. It really wasn't. I think when it comes to designing a game, replayability should be something that you have in mind. Different character builds, different choices, different endings, things like that. Like, there should be the option of replayability. To say that that's not a feature for a game, I think is a bit ridiculous. Because even with Fallout 4, if you wanted to do a different character build, you didn't have to actually start a new game. You just had to level up more because your character leveled infinitely. You could have every single perk in the game. Like, you didn't have to actually start a new game. It'd be a little bit easier because you level a little bit quicker at lower levels, but still, it wasn't something you absolutely had to do. And again, your choices didn't really matter in that game. Even with a game like Fallout 3, which is pretty old at this point, there wasn't a whole lot of impactful choices, but a lot of quests did offer multiple choices, and you could do different endings to quests in a different playthrough. And of course, you had to actually spec out your character. You had to choose what your stats were going to be to get which perks you wanted. So if you want to do a different character build, you actually did have to start a new game. Same thing with New Vegas, which had even more choice when it came to the main story and, of course, other quests. So, I don't know, just to say that replayability isn't something they even think about or consider is kind of absurd. Fallout 76 is not an easy game to define, even in a post-Destiny world. People are desperate to categorize it, Hines tells me, but it doesn't neatly fit into any one box. If you just try and take any game concept and say, so 76 is like this, I promise you're wrong. It's not. I've played the game, I know. This is another narrative they've been trying to push for a while, that Fallout 76 is completely its own thing. It's nothing like any other game you've ever seen before, and more of Bethesda trying to blow themselves a bit. I think here he's indirectly trying to address the Rust comparison or the Daisy comparison, which are also like survival, base building type of games, which it's not an unfair comparison. Are they 100% the same? No. Those ones are more geared towards the survival aspect, but they are still similar kind of games. It's no different than comparing Battlefield and Call of Duty. Are those actually the same? No, not really. Call of Duty's, usually smaller maps, 3-lane maps, twitch shooter, rail shooter. Battlefield's much bigger maps. You have vehicles, destructible environments, bullet drop. Like, they're not exactly comparable, but you can still compare them. Is there a game out there that's 100% exactly the same as Fallout 76 is going to be? No, probably not. But it still does have similar features to other games. Calm down, Pete. The rest of the interview is them just kind of talking about the break it early test application or the beta and how they expect there to be issues with the game. Pretty much no game has a beta and it's just completely flawless, or a lot of games launch with issues, especially Bethesda games. Bethesda single-player games will launch and have crazy game-breaking issues that they have to patch. So the fact that it's a multiplayer Bethesda game, it's probably going to have quite a bit of issues, and they expect that. So if there are some crazy bugs or issues during the beta, we can't really fault them on that. Pretty much every game has that same problem during a beta. But it's also Bethesda, so we expect there to be a lot more bugs than some other games tend to have. But that is also why a lot of us have problems with how late they're actually doing this beta. They're doing it sometime in October. We don't know when, still at this point, as I'm recording this video, as you're watching this video, we don't know when in October the beta is actually going to take place, which is kind of scary because this game comes out November 13th, 14th, I think it's the 14th. And having a multiplayer beta so close to release is kind of scary, especially since they've never actually done like a multiplayer game like BGS themselves. This is their very first multiplayer game, and they're having the balls to put the beta so close to release. I just feel like there's going to be some issues. And that is the whole interview, guys. There might have been like 1 or 2 paragraphs that I kind of skipped over, but the stuff we didn't read I broke down really quickly. We usually just kind of pick apart the interview, but we actually kind of went over the whole thing. It really wasn't that long of an interview anyways, and we didn't really learn anything at all really about Fallout 76 unless you consider the fact that you can be in a group together and still explore the entire map separately. news, we didn't really learn anything. But clearly there's a lot of things in this interview that I wanted to discuss and kind of break down, because P. Hines said a lot of things in this interview with IGN that I actually kind of disagreed with. Anyways, onto a little bit of channel information, channel update if you want to call it that. I'm kind of working on setting up a Teespring. I've had some people tell me on Twitter and Instagram that they'd be interested in like buying some shirts and stuff like that if I ever made them, because I've showed some like samples or whatever on both of those social medias. Here's a quick example. It's just the logo on a t-shirt, nothing on the back. It's kind of simple, but that's kind of why I like it as well. It's already kind of set up, but I'm waiting until 10,000 subscribers to really even do anything with it, because at 10,000 subscribers, you can actually like link your Teespring to your YouTube, and like it gets promoted at the bottom of your videos and stuff like that. It's really cool. Plus, at 10,000 subscribers, we get the community tab, which is very, very helpful for the channel, and that's why I've been pushing for 10,000 for so long now. So let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in the comments. And as always, let me know your thoughts below on this video, what we talked about, this interview with Pete Hines. Did you also find yourself disagreeing with things that he said? And also, as always, if you guys want to enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, turn on notifications, follow me on Twitter at TheDashingDavid, at my Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Give me a smile, give me forever for a while, give me forever for a while, quit acting